Sometimes, the deepest reverence doesn't come from words, but from silence. What you're about to see is a quiet, powerful moment that speaks to the soul. A small bird, before an image of the Blessed Virgin Mary and the Christ child, does something unexpected, something sacred. It pauses, it bows, as if drawn by a presence far greater than itself. Watch closely, because even the smallest among us can point to the divine. That was beautiful, wasn't it? But what you're about to see next might surprise you even more. In this next clip, a dog is caught on camera inside a quiet church, reportedly somewhere in Lincoln. But this is no ordinary moment. The dog isn't running around or sniffing the pews like you might expect. Instead, it sits perfectly still, facing the cross and the statue of the Virgin Mary. Let's take a look.
¿Vamos? Bien. Vamos, negra, vamos. Está oliendo algo.
Completely focused, almost frozen. There's something about its presence, something that gives you chills. The way it gazes, the way it refuses to move as if it sees something we don't. Some kind of presence, some kind of peace. The person who recorded this video said they couldn't stop thinking about it. What was the dog feeling? What kind of energy was in the room? Could it be sensing something holy, something divine? Maybe animals are more in tune with the sacred than we realize. Maybe, in their silence, they show us a kind of reverence that words can't express. Now, the moments we just witnessed were modern-day wonders, animals showing awe and reverence inside churches, before sacred images. But did you know, this isn't a new phenomenon? In fact, there's a story ancient, holy, and well-preserved in church tradition that might be even more miraculous. It's the tale of a ferocious, bloodthirsty wolf, a wild creature that terrorized an entire Italian town. People were too afraid to leave their homes. The gates of the city remained shut. No weapon could stop the beast. But then, a humble man walked into the forest alone. He wasn't a warrior. He was a friar, a man of peace. His name? Francis of Assisi. And what happened next would become one of the most legendary and holy stories in Christian history. Let me tell you what happened. The story takes us back to the early 13th century, to a town called Gubbio, nestled in the green hills of central Italy. It was a beautiful place, with stone homes, narrow winding streets, and a peaceful way of life. But one year, something changed. A terrifying wolf began stalking the countryside. At first, it attacked sheep and goats, but soon it turned to people. Farmers, travelers, even soldiers tried to defend themselves, but the wolf was unlike any they had ever seen. It was large, fast, cunning, and absolutely merciless. The fear spread quickly. Entire families stopped going to church. Shepherds abandoned their fields. Merchants refused to leave the city gates. Even armed patrols sent to kill the beast returned bloodied or not at all. People began to speak of the wolf, not just as an animal, but as a monster. Some whispered that it was sent by God to punish them. Others thought it might be possessed by a demon. No one knew what to do. The mayor ordered the city gates closed at night. The streets of Gubbio grew quiet. Fear filled the air like smoke, and yet the attacks continued. The wolf didn't care about walls or weapons. It prowled the hills just outside, and everyone lived under the shadow of its jaws. And just when hope seemed lost, a visitor arrived in the town. He wasn't a nobleman or a warrior. He carried no sword and wore no armor. He was barefoot, clothed in a simple robe. His face was gentle, his eyes full of peace. It was Francis, a humble friar from Assisi, known already by many as a man of God, a lover of creation, and a friend to the poor. When he heard what was happening, he didn't hesitate. He said, "I will go out to meet the wolf." The people of Gubbio were stunned. Go out to meet the wolf? Alone? But Francis was calm. He didn't carry a staff or a stone, just his robe, his sandals, and the peace of God in his heart. He left the city through the eastern gate, walking softly into the trees where the wolf had last been seen. The wind rustled through the leaves, birds grew silent, and the forest seemed to hold its breath. Not far beyond the town walls, the beast appeared. The wolf lunged out from behind a thicket, fur bristling, teeth bared, eyes wild and hungry. It was larger than any dog, scarred from battles, with a growl like thunder rolling through the earth. Villagers watching from a distance gasped. This was surely the end. But Francis didn't flinch. Instead, he made the sign of the cross, lifted his hand toward the animal, and said in a gentle voice, "Brother Wolf, in the name of Christ, I command you, do not hurt anyone. Come here to me." And something changed. The wolf slowed its charge. It didn't leap. It didn't growl. It stopped as if frozen. Its front legs bent slightly. Its head dropped. And then, with slow, uncertain steps, it walked toward the friar. Francis remained still, hand outstretched in peace. The wolf came right up to him so close he could feel its breath and sat at his feet. The villagers couldn't believe what they were seeing. Francis knelt and looked into the animal's eyes. There was no fear, no anger, only compassion. He spoke softly, as if to a friend. "Brother Wolf, you have done great harm in this land. You have killed not only animals but men, creatures made in the image of God. All have cried out in fear, and all hate you. But I want to make peace between you and the people." The wolf listened. "I know you did these things out of hunger and perhaps loneliness. But if you stop the attacks, I promise the people of Gubbio will feed you for the rest of your days. You shall never go hungry again, but you must give me your word, no more violence." The wolf bowed its head. Then, to the amazement of all, it lifted its right paw and placed it gently in the hand of Francis. It was the wolf's promise. Francis smiled, stood, and said, "Come now, Brother Wolf. Let us go make peace with the town." Together, they walked back toward Gubbio. One was a man of peace, the other a creature once feared as a monster. But side by side, they walked like old friends returning home. When Francis and the wolf approached the gates of Gubbio, the town was already buzzing with rumors. Word had spread like wildfire. The friar is still alive, and the wolf walks beside him. People poured into the streets. Some watched from rooftops, others huddled behind windows and stone columns. The guards at the gate stood frozen, unsure whether to raise their weapons or fall to their knees. And then they saw it. The beast, the same wolf that had killed their neighbors, their animals, their kin, was walking calmly beside the humble friar. Its fur, once wild and filthy, glistened in the sunlight. Its eyes no longer burned with fury, but seemed soft, almost ashamed. It didn't snarl. It didn't growl. It walked like a lamb behind a shepherd. Francis stood before the gates and raised his voice, gentle but firm. Open the doors. There is no more danger. The wolf has made peace with God and with you. With great hesitation, the gates creaked open. The people gasped. Mothers pulled their children close. Men gripped their tools and pitchforks. No one moved except Francis, who continued to walk to the center of the town square, the wolf following without a single misstep. When they reached the square, Francis turned to face the people of Gubbio. The wolf sat at his feet, still and silent. Francis lifted his hands and began to speak. My brothers and sisters, listen closely. This creature who once terrified you, who has taken lives and caused you grief, has now made peace. Not just with me, but with heaven. He attacked out of hunger and desperation, not malice. Some in the crowd murmured. A few even wept. I have spoken to the wolf, Francis continued, and I promised him this. If he refrains from violence, you, his neighbors, will ensure he never goes hungry again. In exchange, he gives you his word. No more killing, no more fear. The people looked at one another, unsure. Feed the wolf? After all he had done. Sensing their hesitation, Francis turned to the wolf. Brother Wolf, will you keep this promise before God and these people? The wolf lifted its head, looked into the crowd, and slowly raised its paw once again. Francis took it in his hand. Then he placed it in the hand of the town's mayor. Gasps and shouts of wonder rose all around. The symbol was unmistakable, a pact, a covenant between man and beast. Francis continued, this is the power of mercy. When we respond to violence with love, when we look past the fear and speak peace, even the fiercest hearts can be transformed. Let this be a sign to all of you. No creature is beyond redemption. The mayor, visibly moved, knelt beside the wolf and promised that the town would feed him every day. The townspeople followed his lead. Bakers offered bread. Farmers pledged meat. Children brought scraps from their tables. That day, the town of Gubbio made peace, not just with the wolf, but with fear itself. And the wolf? He stayed true to his word. He roamed the town freely, never hurting anyone again. He would visit doorsteps each evening and was greeted with kindness, not stones. The people came to love him not for what he once was, but for what he had become. The days that followed were unlike anything the people of Gubbio had ever known. What had once been a town haunted by fear now became a place of wonder. Each morning, the wolf would rise from his resting place near the church, stretch in the sunlight, and quietly make his way through the narrow streets. The people had kept their promise. There was always food waiting, placed on doorsteps, carried by children, or handed over with a whispered prayer. The wolf, in turn, kept his. He no longer prowled the hills or hunted in desperation. He no longer roared at the gates or scattered the herds. He had become part of the community. Some called him Brother Wolf, others simply Francis's miracle. Children would pet him. The elderly would nod and smile as he passed by. Even the dogs of the town seemed to accept him as one of their own. And Saint Francis, he stayed only a short while longer in Gubbio, continuing to teach, to heal, and to remind the people of the lesson they had witnessed with their own eyes, that no creature is too lost to be found, no heart too wild to be tamed by love. When he finally left, he embraced the wolf and whispered something no one else could hear. The wolf watched him go, then returned to the square and lay quietly in the shadow of the church. Years passed. Seasons changed, and the wolf grew old. His fur grayed. His steps slowed. But still, he came each day to visit the people who had once feared him, and they, in turn, cared for him like a dear friend. When the wolf finally died, the whole town mourned. He was buried in a quiet place near the church, and the people of Gubbio built a small stone marker to honor his memory. It wasn't grand, but it was filled with love. It reads simply, "Here lies the wolf who made peace with man." Even long after his death, the story lived on, passed down from parent to child, retold in the plaza at dusk, carved into the memory of the town like scripture. But the legend of the wolf didn't remain in Gubbio. It spread throughout Italy and then across the Christian world. Artists painted it, poets sang of it, and for centuries to come, the tale would serve as a shining example of something far greater than a man taming a beast. It became a symbol of redemption, because the story of the wolf is not just about a miracle, it's about a truth we all need to remember. That anger can be healed. That violence can be answered with compassion. That even the fiercest heart, when met with mercy, can change. Saint Francis saw that truth not just in people, but in all creation. In the birds of the air, the fish in the sea, and yes, in the snarling jaws of a hungry wolf. Where others saw a monster, Francis saw a brother. And in doing so, he showed us the path of peace. The story still echoes today, whenever enemies become friends, whenever forgiveness triumphs over revenge, whenever someone chooses mercy instead of fear. So the next time you hear a growl in the dark, or feel the sting of someone's anger, remember the town of Gubbio. Remember the friar who walked unarmed into the forest. And remember the wolf who laid down his rage and found a home. Because sometimes the fiercest hearts are just waiting for someone to speak to them with love.